Philippine Stock Market Wrap-Up. So we will discuss what happened in the month of May. What seemed to be like another month of a downtrend, but in the last 2 days, so the last 3 days, we saw the market really rebounding on high volume. Right. Of course, we recognize there's still one day in May on Monday, but we would like to take this opportunity to, talk about what's happening in the market, right? So we will discuss that and we will answer your questions after my presentation. So let's start. So let's summarize what happened in May and then what should we watch out for in the month of June. That's the last month, the first half of the year. And then we'll talk about a long-term picks, and we have two new buy picks for you, right? And then besides that, we have more traders playbook picks that we would like to highlight. So what happened? What happened in the month of May? So we went up by 303 points, and that just occurred right in one day. The buying 300, we were up by 5% yesterday. That's the May 27. So now the market closed at 6,674.51. And then year to date, we're now only down by 465 points or 6.5%. So what made the market go down earlier this month, right? So we will discuss, don't worry about it, we will discuss MSCI rebalancing. But I will tell you that MSCI rebalancing was actually one of the main reason why the market went down in the middle of the month. Besides that, there were also rising number of cases in Visayas and Mindanao. Besides that, I think we're also seeing in Cavite, right? And then, yeah, so besides that, what supported the market was we saw further reopening of the economy, right? At the end of the day, we saw some bargain hunting this week. It is related to the MSCI rebalancing, which I will discuss later on. But of course, at the end of the day, why will the funds um, or the institutional or some foreign investors buy into the market? At the end of the day, it's all about the fundamentals. It's all about how cheap the market is, right? So there are signs of further reopening in the economies. And the Metro Manila mayors, as of today, May 28, they're talking about possibly lowering restrictions. Still in GCQ, we're talking about the NCR plus, right? Lower GCQ, but relatively lower restrictions. Right, that's the situation, or that's the news I'm reading as of today. And then besides that, inflation steady 4.5%. If you just take a look at the number, it's quite high, right? But again, it's not above what's expected. That's why the market did not significantly go down because of the data. We're also seeing easing unemployment rate from 8.8% in the month of Feb. It became 7.1% by end March, right? So easing unemployment rate, right? More people getting back, getting a job, right? That's good. So now let's discuss MSCI rebalancing. Okay, let's provide a background first. So MSCI is Morgan Stanley Capital International, right? So it's an investment research firm that provides stock indices, portfolio risk, and performance analytics, right? And as we all know, or as some of us know, MSCI is perhaps best known for its benchmark indices, including the MSCI Emerging Market Index and MSCI Frontier Markets Index, right? And where we belong, where the Philippines belong, is the MSCI Emerging Market Index. So there are around 24 emerging economies there, including China, India, Thailand, Brazil, South Africa, Philippines, Russia, and Mexico. Okay. So the MSCI indices are market cap weighted indices, which means stocks are weighted according to their market capitalization. So the stock with the largest market capitalization gets the highest weighting, right? So for example, SM has in the Philippines, SM has the highest market cap. So in the MSCI, it has the highest weight, right? So a percent change in the price of the large cap stocks in the MSCI index will lead to a bigger movement in the index than a change in the price of a small cap company. So for example, a percent change in the price of SM will have a bigger movement in the index compared to, let's say, URC, right? So now let's talk about the rebalancing itself, right? So each index in the MSCI is reviewed quarterly, Feb, May, August, and November, and rebalanced twice, May and November. So what's happening during our MSCI rebalancing is stocks are added or removed from an index by analysts within MSCI. So they have specific criteria for that one, right? So they have this foreign inclusion factor. They take into account value turnover. They take into account market cap and the like. So when an MSCI index is rebalanced, ETFs and mutual funds that track the MSCI index must also adjust their funds holdings since they are created to mirror the performance of the indices. So I would like to highlight that there are two types of funds, right? They are active funds and there are passive funds. So active funds are the ones that are they can basically do whatever they like in the index, right? They can buy whenever they want, they can sell whenever they want. A passive index tracks and a passive fund tracks an index. For example, it tracks PSCI, it tracks MSCI, right? So during the MSCI rebalancing this month, right? We mentioned this several times in our daily reports in our traders playbook that the announcement was May 12. The effectivity is the close of May 27 because dapat effective na siya May 28, which is today. So in terms of the rebalancing, it should be finished by May 27. So the passive funds rebalanced on May 27. What did the active funds do? We'll discuss that in a short while. So this is the exact scenario of the MSCI rebalancing, or this is the bigger impact in terms of movement last May. So for those who are listening in the podcast, so the Philippines marginal decrease, or not marginal, it decreased by 0.464% in MSCI Emerging Markets Index. So there are two index, right? In the Philippines, there's the standard index where the bigger caps are, and then there's a small cap index, right? In the standard index, what happened was AP, Aboitiz Power, Mega World, and Pure Gold were deleted from the standard cap index. Mega World and Pure Gold were moved to the small cap index, while AP was removed in the MSCI universe overall. For the small cap index, the ones that are added, right? We mentioned earlier Mega World, Pure Gold, and then another CNPF and RHI. Petron was deleted from the small cap index, right? So you can just rewind it back. We will post this on YouTube, Spotify. That's basically what happened. You can even look at our Traders Playbook report dated May 25 for guidance. So this is what happened, right? The next slide here is a chart. For those who are listening, I'm showing a chart of the PSEI where it actually broke out, right? But I would like to highlight in this chart two arrows, right? I'm showing the first arrow pointed to May 12. That was the announcement date of the MSCI, diba? It was announced decrease yung Philippines sa na-decrease siya sa buong emerging markets. There were stocks that were deleted, added. And then the one that I did not show was there are actually percentages. There are actually percentages that you will see in other stocks. They're not necessarily deleted or added, but their weights were lowered. Some stocks were increased their weight and they like that's why you saw different stocks move all together, right? But going back to the chart, I want to show you what happened on starting May 12. On May 12, we saw the market go down, right? Um, the market that time was around, I believe, 6.3. It came from 6.3, right? So what happened there was we talked about earlier what the active funds were doing. So the active funds, right? They can buy or sell whenever they want. What the active funds did in anticipation of the passive fund selling on May 27 was the active funds started to sell as early as the announcement date, May 12. That's why you saw there in the chart, there were gradual decline in the PSCI, right? So in the second arrow, the blue arrow, you saw the market really rally, right? But that was supposed to be the date where the passive funds were selling. So in terms of conceptually, what was supposed to happen was the market should have gone down significantly on May 27. But what the active funds did, and keep in mind there are more active funds than passive funds. What the active funds did, since they already sold, right? So they are anticipating, they're trying to bargain hunt, right? What they did was they bought uh the lows, they bought the bottom. They just kept on buying in anticipation of selling pressure. So what happened in the past week, or from Wednesday until today, was you saw active funds buying what the passive funds were selling, right? Hence, the market went up significantly. So basically, if you want to talk about the first arrow, they started selling, then they kept on buying near May 27, profit agad yun for them. Or assuming that's their first entry, right? So that's basically the scenario. And then if you want to talk about the specifics of the chart, we will talk about that in the next slide. If you're still confused, we can answer that in the question and answer portion. But basically, MSI rebalancing, um, ha, yung actual rebalancing occurs twice a year, but there's also weightings 4 times a year. So in terms of technical analysis, we saw the PSA forming a falling wedge pattern, right? That's a chart reversal pattern. You saw there, it actually fits the criteria of that said pattern, because you saw before it broke up before it formed the pattern, you saw volume really contracting, you saw price really contracting. That's actually one criteria. And then you saw increasing volume on the breakout. That signals that it's reversal of the prior downtrend. And based from my knowledge and based from my research, that the projected target price, or at least the highest projected target price for a falling wedge pattern, is the highest high at the beginning of the formation. So it could be 7.4, right? So you also see MACD now positive, above both the signal zero lines, right? So on price alone, you could accumulate at current levels. You could buy on pullbacks at around 6.6, but once it goes below 6.4, we think it's going to be a kind of a bull trap scenario. So you have to watch out for those levels, right? So it's actually a welcome development. I was initially expecting a pullback today, but the market went up a bit. So that's a welcome development on how strong the buying pressure is. They were just really waiting for the MSA rebalancing to finish, right? So that's a good signal. Of course, on the fundamental or on the local front, you saw um, probably they're seeing increase in the increase in the vaccine. They're seeing um, they're also seeing reopening prospects. So there. So this is actually the monthly chart. I'm showing here in this slide the monthly chart. So basically what we're seeing here is the market is up this month. So we're hoping that's a formation of a higher low in hopes of resuming its or rather forming a new trend going upwards moving forward. So what to watch out for in June, right? So not compared to last month, not that much, right? But basically, we continue to highlight lockdown measures in PH. So I think they will really announce soon. So this is I'm speaking as of as of May 28th. We're still in GCQ with heightened restrictions in NCR Plus. So will they downgrade it to GCQ with less restrictions? How about in Visayas Mindanao? What's the lockdown measures there? So something to watch out for. In terms of economic data, again, manufacturing data on June 1, inflation June 4, GDP of Philippines May 11, and then interest rate decision on June 23. We have OF remittances on June 15. So it's actually an economic data heavy month for the Philippines. For US jobs report on next Friday, June 4, inflation June 10, and then interest rate decision also on June 17, right? And then other countries, they also have manufacturing data on Tuesday, June 1. This is actually the most important thing, as I've mentioned several times, that COVID-19 vaccine-related news is a must-watch in terms of the trend, in terms of the vaccines that are actually arriving here in the Philippines, The recent news was the surplus of Moderna and AstraZeneca are coming here. So at the end of the day, it's still a welcome development. Um, and then the last thing to watch is volatility in global markets. Global markets, we saw a slight volatility, specifically in the US when after the cryptocurrency market crash. So should continue to be volatile coming in June. That might affect us eventually if it really escalates. So something to watch out for. Nevertheless, we will continue to guide you on which stocks to pick. Of course, we keep on mentioning our long-term stock picks, but we also have traders playbook picks for you um, to guide you all throughout this market. So yeah, this is time to mention to you our stock picks. So as I mentioned earlier, we have two new buy picks here, but I would like to mention that the two new buy picks that we have are not our top picks. Nevertheless, it's still a buy pick that you could consider or put on your watch list or even invest if you like. So again, I would like to reiterate for property, we expect strong pickup in residential demand, right? We are actually seeing that as of the first quarter of the year. The main drag in terms of earnings was the mall foot traffic, mainly because we saw heightened restrictions, specifically in March, right? Office remains to be stable. Hotels, of course, remain to be a drag in terms of earnings. So the residential and office are the ones that are, driving earnings, especially residential. The office is somewhat stable from flat to a bit lower performance. Nevertheless, it's not that of a drag compared to, let's say, the malls, right? So in terms of companies who are heavily exposed in residential, again, we reiterate Ayala Land. Our current target price is 52 pesos. Pre-pandemic, their operating income, that's earnings before interest and taxes, 65% of which comes from the residential business. That's how significant the business is for Ayala Land. That being said, since we're positive on the residential front and we're seeing positive trends on that, we would like to recommend Ayala Land. Especially right now, it's still quite low. It's still around 34 pesos if I'm not mistaken, right? So of course, moving forward, you see some upside once we further reopen, and eventually we'll get there. There we are already seeing the vaccine rollout come in strong. And then next we have SM Prime Holdings, our target price of 45 pesos. This is definitely a reopening winner given that it's the leader in the property business. So in terms of reservation sales, we expect that to pick up strongly this year. In terms of data, we've been mentioning several times that we're seeing resilient remittances, low interest rate environment, and the like, right? So especially if you see signs that the government will further reopen, definitely you can see SM Prime Holdings sentiment really turn positive further. For RLC, it's still beaten down. Current price of that is 16 pesos. Our target price fundamentally is 28. So, and yet we expect earnings to exceed 2019 levels. So it tells you how much it will outperform this year. And it's because of its project in China, which is already contributing to its earnings as we speak. So something to think about. Well, our recommendation is to enter. But if you want to pick up something that we has significant upside, it's RFC. And then we are also positive on consumers, specifically consumer discretionary. Again, what we're telling you here are stocks that could benefit from further reopening, right? Um, so again, we'll mention here. Keep in mind that our top picks are consumer discretionary, right? But our two new picks are actually under consumer staples. Nevertheless, if you like to hedge your portfolio, of course, our main recommendation is go for reopening. But if you'd like to hedge your portfolio by adding some safer haven names, then our two new stock picks are for you. So first one is San Miguel Food and Beverage. So it's one of our top picks. It's a reopening play. Our target price is 93 pesos. So as mentioned, I would like to highlight that our target price previously for FB, right, is 81. We increased it to 93. So I would like to focus on the second point on the slide. I will read it for those listening in the podcast. So on one hand, alcohol beverage volumes were able to claw back faster than expected. So despite on enough restrictions on mobility, social gatherings, alcohol beverage volumes were strong. And then on the food business side, exposure to packaging prepared meals allowed for the segment to stay relevant amid stay-at-home orders, supported by new retailing channels and product innovations, right? So on the you're seeing strong rebound on the alcoholic beverage and then stability in the food business. And then we have a traders playbook for this one, right? As of May 28, I believe it's 70 pesos. If it breaks above um 73 pesos, I think it's a good buy on a technical perspective. Then RHI, which continues to lag in terms of share price, but for us, we see value in the company because it is indeed a beneficiary from further economic reopening. It's exposed to malls, right? That's the thing. It's not being bought up significantly because its segments are significantly exposed to malls, and malls are not that populated still, right? But it's improving, but it's not at a certain level that investors are willing to, you know, bargain on RHI. Nevertheless, we're looking at 1 to 2 years down the road. That being said, we think the situation will get better, especially right now. We are seeing strong vaccine rollout. So RHI, our target price is 81 pesos. I would like to also highlight that the balance sheet remains healthy. So it has a sizable war chest. It can buy companies if it wants to. So there. So sleeping giant, if you ask me. So you can take advantage. So this one of our new buy pick, right? It's actually a previous buy pick of ours, to be honest. But we increased its target price from 23 to 26.3 pesos, right? This is actually a strong company. Year to date, it's outperforming the sector. We have been recommending this also on the Traders Playbook or report several times. So it has been good for us in terms of performance. So fundamentally, CNPF. So Century Pacific Food, the products you're probably aware of, Century Tuna, Argentina, Birch Tree, right? 555. So CNPF now is moving ahead with new business expansion plans. So with higher capacity and tuna manufacturing plants, it has new project launches, right? So it is poised for exponential growth moving forward. And then to be specific for this year, management aims to grow the business organically by 10 to 15% this year. All right. But for us, given the recent implementation of the Create Law, it should allow for speedier bottom line growth. So around 10, approximately 20% for us. So bottom line, I believe CNPF is trading at 23 pesos. So you have more than 10% upside. So you could still buy this as a hedge. Again, as a hedge, given that our top picks are are all reopening plays. Another buy pick of, or at least another revision in our target price is Pure Gold. So Pure Gold, we've been recommending this way before, and in the traders playbook we highlighted to pick up every time it pulled back until 32 pesos, and right now it's at 39, right? So congratulations for those who followed our report. So fundamentally, right, our target price is 55 pesos. But why do I like the company? It's more on valuations. Given the recent announcement of P-Gold's deletion in the MSCI Standard Index, right? We talked about earlier, it was deleted in the MSCI Standard Index and was moved to the small cap. So because of that event, um, valuation actually became, P-Gold's valuation became attractive because it was sold down. So it's still an opportunity to buy the stock, right? So probably the question you're asking, 30 from 31, nag 39 na siya, it's still good to buy. If you're looking at the long term, our target price is 55. So take advantage. Okay. And then lastly, banks, right? Again, looking at 1 to 2 years down the road, if you want the economy to sustain its rebound, definitely the banks should benefit from that one. Of course, if businesses expand, you have to borrow, so banks will benefit from that one. And I would like to highlight for those who are listening for the first time, we've been mentioning that we do not cover Metrobank, but we do have a research partner, DBS, Vickers Securities, that's Development Bank of Singapore. They cover Metrobank, and their target price for Metrobank is 67 pesos. Formerly 64, now 67. So they find the bank cheap. And for our picks in the bank, it's almost the same case. For BDO, it's still trading at a steep discount, right? You're wondering why it pulled back yesterday, May 27, where most of the index names went up, right? So again, it's MSCI related. It's definitely a decision of some active funds, but nevertheless, you saw it rebound significantly today, May 28th, right? So there, you're seeing normalization of price. So again, for us, it's time to take advantage, nevertheless, of the steep discount of the stock. For us, our target price is 162, right? Significantly higher than current levels. At the end of the day, it's still your number one bank in terms of assets. So take advantage. And then BPI is also a pick of ours and the banks. So we expect loan growth to pick up 6% this year and 8% next year. So, and then there are also changes due to the signing of the Create Law, so that should result in faster earnings growth. And then lastly, SM. So SM significant. It was one of your more stable index name, right? So nevertheless, we see upside from that one because it's exposed to sectors such as property, retail, and banking, which are technically your reopening sectors, right? So SM are top pick, 1,250. So here are picks, right? So I'm showing here in this slide that the share price of our picks as of earlier May 28, then the target price and then upside. For those who are listening, um, we're showing here our picks in order, with SM being our top pick and then showing the upside. So I would like to read na lang the upside. So for SM, as of May 28, you have a 27% upside for Ayala Land, 50% for SMPH, 22% for RLC, 63% for FB, 31% for RHI, 56% for BDU, 59% and for BPI, 25% upside. So you have huge upside. You're not there's still opportunity in the market. Don't worry that you got left on the bounce. There's still opportunity, and best case scenario, we're just starting to rebound. And then on this slide, I'm showing you the model part. If you take a look at just to explain na lang the idea here. For example, if you bought our picks, right, basing it from its market cap. So for example, you have a higher weight on your portfolio on SM because it has a higher market cap. If you did that, if you adjusted your portfolio accordingly, the performance of that portfolio would be only down by 5% compared to PSCI of 6.5%, right? On the other hand, if for example, if you bought our picks equally, it would have slightly underperformed compared to PSCI by 1%. Okay. So there are traders playbook picks. So we have I would like to explain um, our report last Tuesday, May 25. Right? So prior to the movement in the market, we were already recommending several names to where you could take advantage of the moves. We recommended to take advantage of the expected pullbacks on Pure Gold, Meg, and AP, right? So in this report, on this May 25 report, we explained to you the MSCI scenario, right? We discussed this earlier in this webinar. That last May 12, MSCI announced the results. Pure Gold, Mega World were shifted to the small cap. AP was deleted. But nevertheless, our recommendation was to take advantage of the expected pullbacks because we like the businesses, and the valuation will only get more attractive since they are expected to be sold down, and that's what happened. And we recommended uh, that accordingly. So now, what do we do now? So I guess right now the opportunity here is still there, especially for the likes of Mega World. even AP, right? Actually, all of three are still. Do you have opportunity on that one for both fundamentally and a technical perspective? We actually try to update um, the other stocks, given that they have really rallied strongly, right? Nevertheless, some of those are actually already hit our target price, but we would adjust accordingly given the strong run up. Nevertheless, that's the value of this report, to take advantage of these certain scenarios. We will explain to you the event, and we will explain to you how you can take advantage of it. And this is one, right? For pure gold, actually, we recommended this individually on May 18, right? So this actually was just an emphasis. And then an individual playbook that I would like to highlight on this wrap up is Eagle, right? I think you saw price action, um, strong price action from the cement today, May 28. And for Eagle, I would like to highlight its strong earnings. In terms of earnings, besides strong earnings, it's worth taking note that in terms of sales, si Eagle lang yung higher, right? Compared to Cemex and Holcim na although higher earnings nila, yung sales nila was lower. So if you talk about net margin ni Eagle, higher also compared to CHP and Holcim. So while cement sales are expected to be muted this second quarter, given the effects of the renewed quarantine measure, Eagle's pricing strategies and cost-saving initiatives should help the company sustain its bottom line growth in the next quarter. So we like Eagle. So our main recommendation here is to take advantage once the stock trades above 1280. Right? So you take profit at 14.20. If it goes the other way, set your cut loss below 1220 and you'll be fine. So that's a good risk to reward trade. So I'd like to highlight here in this slide our traders playbook performance. For our buy calls, um, so 9 out of, I think this is a 20, are correct. So we're picking up, I think, is it one? Yes, 9 out of 19 rather, 9 out of 19. So we're getting near that 50% mark on the buy calls, especially if the market continues to go up. Um, on June, we'll definitely see that percentage go higher. But I would like to highlight, if you follow all our reports, you actually gain. You actually gain compared to PSA performance of down 6.5%. So that's the more important um, data that we like to highlight. So how could that happen? That 9 out of 19 correct, and yet positive in performance because we practice good risk management, right? Um, so that's how what we practice in our firm. Good risk management, hence outperforming pa rin sa benchmark. And then you also initiate sell calls, right? So if you actually add our buy and sell calls, um, our performance would have been around 61% correct, right? So that's good. So here are sell calls, and it played very well for PHA, AC, ASEX, SCC, Bloom AV, SCC, and M. I see Semirara twice. So of course, no. For example, si Premier Horizon already rebounded, but it's following our sell call help you save from further drawdown in the near term, because we also mentioned there where to buy, or rather where are the support level. So those are your signals where to buy. So for example, and your sell point is 1.90, right? And then our support is 1.65. You could buy at 1.65. That's basically the mindset on our sell calls. Okay, so this is the time we answer your questions. Okay, so first one is, what caused the price of ICT to suddenly surge as well on May 26? Okay, so we have to keep in mind that besides, okay, there are two reasons. Number one could be MSA related, could be MSA rebalancing related, especially as given that its price has gone up relatively to the other stocks, it deserved a higher weight in the MSA. That's number one. Number two, there are actually news that were disclosed for ICT specifically. For example, it increased an additional stake at its port in Congo, so from 52 to 62%. So that was a welcome development for investors. So that's why it suddenly surged. Okay, so okay, good question. So what does target price level mean? Is it FMSec fair value computation or consensus from other brokers? So good question. So what I'm discussing here in this webinar are target price levels. So there. Then for FB, good question. So fake breakout down from it initially broke above 73, but now went as low as 69. So yeah, just follow our cut loss level that we mentioned our report. Um, then you'll be okay. And then once it goes back above 73 again, then buy ulit. So basta set ano lang, practice risk management. Okay, good question. So my average, the question is, the client's average for Wilcon is 13. Do you suggest that I continue to add up or take profit first and just buy the dips? Well, actually, we just disclose or publish a report on Wilcon, both fundamentals and traders playbook report, both company report and traders playbook report, and we mentioned there that our target price for Wilcon is 70 18, it's 18, right? Our target price for Wilcon is 18. So what our main recommendation there is to, for example, I think it's still trading at 18 right now. So you take advantage by taking profits and then just buying back at around 16, then selling at 18, if that's the strategy you like. But for example, you have an average of 13, you could take profit right now and shift it to other names that have significant upside, like our top picks. So probably that's our recommendation for you. Okay, so another good question. So what are your thoughts on MPI? So it's a value stock, but businesses are highly regulated, so that's true. So if economic chacha were to sign into law, should we expect sentiment on regulation will improve? Well, in terms of what will happen should it come into law, I think it's not binary, no. It's dependent on several on lots of things. So at the end of the day, for example, on the water business, you're seeing progress there. um, you saw now that meron ng concession agreement sa Maynila. Of course, in terms of the previous agreement, mas strict siya, relatively stricter than the previous one. But at the end of the day, they were supposed to be closed down. They were initially supposed to be closed down, right, according to the government. So right now, it's a welcome development. They're still operating. And then for the other businesses, it's dependent on each agency because you're talking to different agencies, so it's dependent on lots of moving parts really. But definitely, there are signs going through um, less regulations for its businesses. And for MPI, definitely it's still relatively cheap. So if you already have a high allocation to MPI, probably we suggest to not buy anymore. But if you have a small allocation or no allocation on MPI, it's good to take advantage. Because at the end of the day, it's still cheap. Okay, another good question. So are foreign funds back or just due to one time because of the Mondayness and IPO? So well, the Mondayness and IPO will be next week's, right? So the foreign buying that you're seeing in the market the past days is not related yet to the Mondayness and IPO. So of course there could be a liquidity squeeze once Monday Nissan lists in the market because it's such a big company, right? Such a stable and big company. So it could suck the liquidity out for the other stocks, but definitely a short term thing or probably just a several days thing, right? So we at the end of the day it's hinged on the economic fundamentals, it's hinged on the vaccine rollout, it's hinged on further reopening, whether the market rally we're seeing now is sustainable. So there. Okay, so Eagle stock seems less traded in the market. How will that influence the way we trade in the market? So would you consider the cash dividend disclosure false and attractive? So to answer your first question, so we always recommend, for example, in our Eagle recommendation, we always recommend that once it does break out, you should see significant volume relative to the previous days or the normal average volume of the stocks. If it, for example, breaks above 1280 and um, it is not walang volume, then it's probably a fake breakout. So at the end of the day, volume is still key, assuming you're a trader. But if you're an investor, there's still upside in Eagle also, fundamentally. And then for Holcim, well, cash dividend, I think it's a regular cash dividend if I'm not mistaken. So it's not surprising. Nevertheless, I think Holcim also has new capacity coming in, so there's also upside for Holcim. Okay, so okay, another question is how long is a span in years if we say buy stocks for long term? In terms of our picks, the target price you're seeing there is at least the next 12 months, right? It could be valid over the next 2 years. Um, also, so that's the period you're playing with. That's a period we're talking about. Okay, another question is looking at the long-term chart of Pure Gold, the stock price declined towards the second half of last year. Yes, despite good prospects due to pandemic-induced demand. Yes, because second half of last year there were already um prospects of reopening, right? So prior to the country hitting us 10,000, 15,000 cases, parang excited na tayo mag-reopen nun eh. That's why they were selling Pure Gold and buying the reopening stocks. However, tumaas yung cases natin, di ba? So, binentahan ulit yung reopening stocks. And then for Pure Gold, what happened until April, May, people already and funds were already sensing that it could be shifted to a small cap. That's why the selling continued for Pure Gold. So right now, with that out of the way, the upside is there now. At the end of the day, it's a stable company, stable earnings company. So, and the value of Pure Gold right now is significantly cheap compared to the actual value of the company, given its stability. So, it's definitely definitely an opportunity. Oh yeah, your main question, price. Could this recent price surge be unsustainable? Probably in the short term, you can see a pullback because the rally was really sharp, right? So it could pull back to around 38, 37, but it's only an opportunity to buy, especially for the long term. Um, because again, probably you're thinking we're recommending all stocks. We're not recommending all stocks. For example, Wilcon is not a buy for us. It's only a hold. Jollibee is not a buy for us. Emperador is not a buy for us. So the stocks that you were recommending here are the ones that we expect to for you for we expect to outperform, especially reopening sila. For GFC, yes, it's a reopening winner, but there are also company-specific headwinds that limit its upside. So for us, hold lang siya. Hindi siya like buy, you know. And then next question is, what is our projected price for Dito? Well, we don't have a fundamental value for Dito, but in terms of share price action, it's finding it hard to get above 10 pesos. Probably if it gets above 10 pesos, you see a short-term price reversal towards the upside. But on the fundamental front, we've mentioned this several times that right now what investors are looking at is when will it be profitable, because you will notice there's several news for dito puro positive. I think there were a couple of negative na hindi daw compatible yung phone, di maganda yung reviews so far, but there were more positive news, and yet dito did not significantly rally, right? It's still far from its highs of 18 or 19, right? So right now, I think this in the near term, we might not see Dito go back to its all-time high. So expect limited price action or probably just trading range lang. So there. Another question is ACNG going to be included in the PSE index? Well, I can't speculate on that, but in terms of requirements, it's possible. It's definitely possible. So I can't say lang with certainty, but it's definitely possible. The market cap, it pasado siya doon. Value traded, it's also there. So and public float, yes, after the FOO, public float will be met na. So it is possible, but probably we should wait for that one. But I can't see with uncertainty, but definitely it's possible. So next question is, okay, AP stocks have been declining for the last 5 years despite analysts' good fundamental reviews citing strong financials. That's also correct. Why is the price still at these levels? So actually, the power companies um, have 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 had several company-specific headwinds. So number one, may mga power plant issues yan eh. Parang almost each year may mga power plant issues. Um, and then there are also competition, right? Pag may nag-shift ng renewables, yung other companies will also shift to renewables, so there's competition. And then lower selling prices of power. Lower selling prices also limited their profit margin. So those were the factors in the past years, right? But right now, kasi parang they've already like faced one of the worst situations in their company history. So definitely there's upside moving forward, right? Because before, when the company or when the country was near its peak, right? Prior to the pandemic, prior to the trade war, uh, people were looking for further catalyst, further upside. And where will they get that? So any issues were sold down because expectations were easily not met. Right now, expectations can be relatively easier to meet, mainly because puro bottom galing puro hardships. So this is the time we see value talaga in several companies, and we're sticking with the ones that have faced several crises and survived and also maintained their market share. And most of those are in the index. So there. And then AP, despite the issues, nagbibigay pa rin naman sila ng dividends. So okay, good question. So long question. So with the many, hold on, with the many Econ indicator announcement in June, are you seeing continued bull run or will it dampen the recent bull run? If it dampens, will it just be sideways or seeing another bearish market? What's your PSI range, right? If we're talking about, actually, if we're just talking about the financial crisis, I can easily give you a forecast, right? But this is a health crisis. We're not out of the woods yet, but we're seeing improvement. That's why I keep on saying in the wrap up, it's hinged talaga. It's hinged on the response. Um, the vaccine is already there. Although relatively smaller pa yung na vaccine, but we're getting there. Nearly 4% na yata yung vaccinated, and then nearly 1% na yung fully vaccinated. But at the end of the day, that's where the investor confidence will come from. That's where foreign investor confidence will come from. So another is easing restrictions, right? But if easing restrictions only result to higher cases, then babalik tayo sa initial problem natin na higher cases. So my answer there is it will depend on the health issues. If we will see continued bull run or not. But definitely in terms of recent developments, the status quo, okay tayo so far. So assuming, here's how I can answer your question. Assuming status quo tayo moving forward, definitely the market has a way to go. So, but definitely may cheap talaga yung market. It's just a matter of entry levels na nang pinag-usapan natin. Right? Because if I'm a global investor kasi, there are several opportunities in the world. Right? For example, if this certain region is struggling, I can I can invest muna in other region, right? And if I'm already seeing signs of improvement, I can shift my funds to another region, right? That's why that's why that's why um we were not seeing foreign in the past months, right? But right now, the Metro Manila mayors are seeing lower restrictions, diba? So we might see foreign come back in because we don't have that much flexibility for us to shift in other countries. Of course, yung madali na mag-invest sa US, for example, but for example, invest sa Europe, other Africa, etc. Right? Since we don't have that flexibility, you might as well take advantage of the cheap price in our local market. So there. So yeah, there. Oh yeah, FTSE rebalancing. Yeah, there's also FTSE rebalancing. Although the effect that to the market is significantly less compared to MSCI. In terms of value traded, makakita ka ulit ng mga 20, 15 billion in a day because of that rebalancing. But in terms of movement, like 5% in a day, FTSE rebalancing usually does not cause that big of a swing. Only in value traded. So there. Yes, sir. So I think the question here is how about the stocks in the stock screen? So if you could further elaborate your question, what about the stocks in the stock screen? Insights on telco. Yeah. So for Converge, definitely it's a growth company despite it being 100 billion company, despite it already rallying significantly since its IPO, right? It's still a growth company. It still has several projects and several untapped markets to enter. So for PLDT, I think it's definitely their growth right now because it's mostly on the home broadband, right? Dun sila leader. That's why it's taking advantage of that, especially right now. They work from home, study from home, right? There's still marami pang homes dyan na untapped. So they could take advantage of that. So yeah, so Converge Tel is also are also a good picks. But again, that's as mentioned, in terms of outperformance in the next 1 to 2 years, you might want to go for the reopening place. Ang dami pang mura dyan na hindi pa gaano maakyat. Yeah, so yeah, I'm still waiting on the how about the stocks in the stock screen, if you could further elaborate your question. So while we're waiting for that, let's answer a couple more. Oh, okay. How do we choose between stock screen and stock and topics? Yeah, that's a good question because in the stock screen, if you listen, for example, to our that's our basic seminar, our stock screen are actually parang not necessarily you buy everything in the stock screen. You can actually use a stock screen lang as an option. For example, if you want a dividend yielding company, you could pick one or two in the yield seeker, right? If you want to find a company who is trading at a relatively cheap valuations and yet high yung growth niya, you could pick value play, right? Or yung other screener namin, if you want to buy a company which is relatively expensive and yet high growth siya, you could pick riding the momentum, but we're not recommending you to buy all of those. You could buy one or two. It's just a screener that can help you pick a stock or two, right? So there. Yes, AC Energy definitely the growth prospect is there for AC Energy. The main catalyst right now is the infusion of its international assets sometime this year, I think third quarter. Because if it once it infuses its international assets, that's an additional 1,400 megawatts, diba? And right now they already have um, local plants of around more than 1,000 megawatts, right? But based from further research, it's trading relatively expensive already. So in terms of upside, in the near term, probably capture. But definitely any pullbacks from here are an opportunity to buy given its growth prospects. Not only here in the Philippines, but in other countries because yung mga power plants niya or yung mga yung mga ano niya, assets niya are not only in the Philippines but are also in Australia, India, Indonesia, Vietnam. So there. So yeah, I don't usually answer like yung mga ganito, but yeah, I can help you. Can you discuss FM ETF? So FM ETF is actually an exchange traded fund. It acts like a stock. It tracks the PSEI, right? So basically, kung ano yung usual percentage change ni PSEI, yun yung percentage change ni FM ETF. So if you want to buy the index, but you don't want to buy shares of each index names, you can buy FM ETF instead. So that's the benefit of it. And compared to mutual fund, the main marketing there is yung FM ETF is cheaper compared to buying mutual fund because FM ETF does not have management fee, only commission. And commission is lower compared to management fee. So there. So okay, so last question. This is a good question. Um, how would the market react to decreasing COVID-19 cases in NCR and rising cases in other regions amid growing vaccination? Does the cases in other regions are concerned since NCR is the economic powerhouse of PH? It depends. Of course, I know, of course, if di naman masyado sympathetic yung market, of course, sympathize with the rising cases outside Manila, but the market kasi takes into account the numbers, right? So for example, if yung NCR where most of the economic activities are bumaba yung cases, tumataas yung vaccine rollout, definitely you could see the market have upward pressure. But it depends. Now outside NCR, not necessarily man di papansin ng market. It depends. But for example, where the economic hubs are, economic cities are, yung mga mabibigat na economic activity, for example, Cebu, Davao, um, Calabarzon are also heavy in terms of economic activity. If you saw significant cases there, significant quarantine measures moving forward, it could also affect the market because listed companies also have businesses there and they're well positioned there. So it depends on which region. Nevertheless, we don't want to see rising cases and further lockdowns anymore. So that would affect pa rin yung market in a way. So there, I hope I answered your question. So okay, so okay, sige. So thank you. Thank you everyone. So thank you for everyone who tuned in. For those who would like to listen this wrap up, you could listen to the podcast. We'll upload this also. Um, so there. So we like to promote our podcast. So we just published, or yeah, we just posted in Spotify our recent podcast. We guested si Miguel Coneta. We talked about the pros and cons of blockchain. Keep in mind that our podcast was ranked as the top business podcast by Spotify last August. And then at one point, we were the number 21 trending podcast in the country. So yeah, so just tune in. There also, you can also listen. You could just listen to each of the topics that we posted there. Hindi siya nalulumaan. Kumbaga, you could listen to it. We talked about SROs, we talked about the water companies, ABS-CBN, and the like last year. So just listen in, and at your free time, you will learn a lot. So thank you, and see you again next month. And as always, with First Metro Securities is hashtag your future first. So thank you. So lastly, if you want to attend our gift seminar, we have a gift seminar in June. So just register at this link. It's also posted on Facebook. So there. So that's it. Thank you.